Los Angeles Unified School District is the second largest school district in the country, and there's been a long history of dealing with school food issues and moving in a direction towards what you're going to hear about today. It goes back to a series of ordinances that were passed beginning in 2002, where a resolution that banned sodas and junk food from vending machines, which was the second school district in the country to do that, and really launched the initiative around the country to really change the dynamic around vending machine sodas and junk food in vending machines. There are other legislation that passed that focused on the cafeteria, set up mechanisms to give feedback to school food services through a cafeteria improvement committee, and also was able to develop a mechanisms for influencing what was going on in terms of what was offered in the cafeteria and the format and presentation of the food that was available. Those measures that were passed had there was a lot of complexity in terms of how effectively they were implemented. There was a lot of work that went back and forth in terms of that, but the dynamic really changed when a new food services team was brought on in 2007. Before I turn it over to David, just to give you a little bit of the dimensions of the size and scale of LAUSD. The total K-12 enrollment is 678,000. Total enrollment when you add in adult education is over 1 million. There are over 1,000 schools, and including the charter schools and centers. So you're really talking about a vast reach that the school food services has in terms of the kind of the volume, the overall costs that goes into preparing school food menus, and the number of students involved. So I'll turn that over to David.
Okay. Good morning and good afternoon, wherever you might be. My name is Dave Bengkel. I'm the Deputy Director of Food Services for the Los Angeles Unified School District. As Chelsea clicks through some of the slides, this really just gives you a history and background of what Bob was talking about in terms of our Board of Education as well as our former superintendents. The superintendents and the board are really the drivers as well as the community advocates for this program, whether it was through Occidental College, whether it was through the California Food Policy Advocates. Various different school food coalitions have really helped us to get where we're at today after really a 10-year drive of trying to provide healthier, nutritious meals to our students in Los Angeles. So Chelsea, if you'll click through to the next slide. The next slide just gives you the 2010-11 numbers. And to put it into perspective, we got the numbers this morning actually for the 2011-12 school year after the norming. And to give you some understanding, the district has had a long history of a reduction in total enrollment. The total enrollment generally declines by about 3% per year, and that's no different than from 2010 to 2011. We actually had a decline of about 2.1%. So now our population, and I'll get this updated to you, is 664,000 as of the norm date in October. So you can tell from last year that we've lost the size of many school districts just in 1 year that have moved to charter services or to public school choice, where we actually have multiple schools on the same campus, which I'm sure many of you have. So the numbers keep changing, but what has dramatically changed is the 396,000 number for our adult education students. In fact, when we did the norming this year, it's down to 255,000 students. So about 140,000 reduction in the adult education department, the division of adult education. So it kind of tells you what's happening in our school district. When I came to the district 4 years ago, we had a $7.5 billion organizational general fund. This year, it's $6.5 billion. So we've cut out roughly $1 billion of cost in our budget, and most of that, 80% of that, is in the teaching force. In the district, we really challenged here in California with a lot of different financial issues, and what has happened is that's really hit education. So what the district has asked us to do is to really try to drive the cost down of our program, as well as the supervision that happens in the schools. We've lost a lot of supervision, so a number of lunch periods have been shortened. We had multiple lunch periods in the school district over the last 10 years, and now we're down to, in many schools, as short as 22 minutes in our lunch periods. We had many schools that had second chance breakfast, which was a program that was started by our board as well as our advocates to really promote breakfast if the children missed the early morning breakfast. Back in 2006, we actually had a low participation. We had only 17% participation in our secondary schools, and that's when our Director of Food Services was hired, Dennis Barrett, to really take the program back and really promote participation in the program. So he's done that. This last year we were up over 45% in our middle schools and 39% in our high schools. So over the last 5 years he's dramatically changed that. What has changed is the whole process of what we've done in terms of how we procured food. In 2006, 2007, we served 109 million meals to our students in the LA Unified with nearly 800,000 students. The number of meals you can see on the screen there from 2010, fiscal 2010, was actually 121 million meals. So when you start to look at, the differences between 2007 and 2009-10, is an increase of over 35,000 students a day in terms of participation. In the 2009-10 school year, you could see that what we spent on food, the breakdown there was some unique statistics, not necessarily in the K-12 market, but obviously we've got some things that happen in Los Angeles here that are unique to us, and then which really led to some of the school food transformation. You notice there the labor and benefit cost is $1.42 per meal. And in the Los Angeles School District in 2007, the Board of Education actually adopted a resolution and made the cafeteria food services pay for the full-time benefits of our short-hour workers, as well as add an additional hour to our employees. So we have a minimum of 4-hour workers, and those workers receive full-time benefits for them and their family at no cost. The food services pays for that, which we certainly want to do. But you notice there that the breakdown of the dollars spent is a lot less in terms of the food. So how did we do that is really some of the things that I want to talk about. So in 2009-10, the fiscal 2010, we spent an average of 77 cents over the cost of our breakfast, lunch, and snacks for food itself when we took the total number of expenses divided by the total number of meals served, came out to 77 cents. In 2010-11, the fiscal 2011, we actually increased that to about 86 cents on average. So if you'll click to the next slide. So the next slide kind of talks about our district in terms of the quantifications. 80% of our district qualifies for free or reduced price meals. Over 650,000 meals are prepared and served on a daily basis in our district. We have 4,500 employees, of which 2,300 are short-hour workers. And what we've really tried to do is transform the program to be able to provide healthy alternatives, as well as incorporating more fresh fruits and vegetables into our program. So what we really started to do was change the procurement processes. On the next slide, you can kind of see through some of the things that we've done in terms of changing the participation. It really started with the procurement process. We moved away from a line item bidding process and went to a categorical partnership, which was really to reduce down the amount of work that our employees had to do when it came to submitting, individual specifications and putting out line item bids for companies to maybe get an award, maybe not get an award. And so what we really tried to do was to move to more of a categorical partnership and move away from commodity foods so that we could have a commercial product all year long. So in terms of our categorical partnering, what we've done is we've taken that commodity food PAL dollar and taken that credit as a rebate against the commercial product that's prepared for us. So that's really helped a lot in terms of reducing not only our PAL dollars, but also our cost of food. Our cost of food for the 109 million meals in 2006-2007 was $125 million. And in 2009-10, for that 77 cents, we actually only spent $89 million on food. What we really tried to do was to move to more of a locally sourcing, more of a partnership approach. Rather than having a 1, 2, or 3-year bid, we went to 5-year categorical partnering bids. We also put into our proposals that we would have products purchased as much as possible within a 200-mile radius of downtown Los Angeles. In 2006, we procured, you can see the slide here, less than $2 million worth of fresh fruits and vegetables. Last year, we spent $14.5 million on fresh fruits and vegetables, and we spent $103 million on food last year for the 120 million meals that we served or so last year. So we really did 3 things to transform the program. Was to change the school image of removing a lot of the food items that we normally associate with school food, to move it more to a restaurant style. And that has created a number of challenges as we work through the program this year. The procurement itself has really helped us, but if you'll connect to the next slide, there's really 4 or 5 things that we have seen are critical to the success. And the first is the need for outreach and to really educate the community about what we're doing. At the beginning of the school year, we had almost a perfect storm. Our board and our superintendent made the decision to eliminate flavored milk. Some of you may have seen that in terms of news. The other thing was that we really wanted to try to move towards the Institute of Medicine recommendations to start putting more fresh fruits and vegetables into our programs, more healthier foods into our programs with less sugar and less sodium. So we've had the need for outreach. What we've done is we've gone out and done tastings with our students, parent tastings. In fact, we generally do 1 to 2 a day. We've had 70 of the school sites scheduled, and what we've found from those is an overwhelming positive response from not only the parents, but the community, the administration at the schools, and the students themselves. So one of the things that really we've seen is that, there is that transformation of trying to change the children's, diet as well as their acceptance of their palate. So we've really made a lot of progress with things like our vegetarian entrees, for an example. We have very high success rates on a lot of things like our vegetable tamales. We've had a very high success rate in terms of our locally sourcing of produce. And there's been a lot of other things that have happened to our participation, not only from the change of the meals, but for an example, last year we had 99 schools that were on Provision 2, and we moved those back to a base year through a ticket process. So that has reduced some of the participation for the children simply having to do their ticket books and things again. So we've also seen this year, and I'm not sure if any of you have seen this, but we've had some supply chain shortages in terms of some of our protein items that we've seen, as well as trying to work through a new menu. It's created, a number of different challenges. As I look, out through, what is really happening, I go to a lot of schools, talk to a lot of cafeteria managers, and what they all say is really the support of what we're trying to do is to stay the course in terms of trying to serve and offer, healthier types of foods. On our menus, you may or may have not seen our menus, but we do not offer things like pizza or chicken nuggets or peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, grilled cheese, macaroni and cheese, those types of things we don't have. What we've tried to do is really change the dynamics of more of a culturally diverse menu in terms of Los Angeles. So having said that, there's been a lot of challenges. Our participation is down in terms of the first couple of months of school, but there's a lot of factors that are in place on that. When I look at, what we're averaging and spending on the cost of food, it's about 92 cents this year, so as opposed to the 86 cents of last year. So it's costing us a little bit more money in terms of the cost of food, but what we're really seeing is that, the participation is really starting to come back. I was at a school yesterday where, talking to the parents and the students, they were actually up this year by 80 meals for lunch and 120 for breakfast. So it's across the board. There's a lot of positives of what we're doing. We've had a lot of media to date. We've had over 45 million impressions on our marketing campaign called I'm In. And we've really taken the focus with Bob and others in our community to really provide healthier meals and make things, the best that we possibly can for our students. So I know there's questions, and I think my 20 minutes is maybe up.
Well,
so
let me add 2 more minutes to supplement some of the stuff that David's laid out. One thing that he didn't go over, but which is also very impressive and important for this call, is that in significantly, that huge jump in the increase in fresh fruits and vegetables included as much as possible, and with a large percentage of that overall increase is within a 200-mile radius to use that criteria. And through their new system in terms of the vendors they have and then their procurement policies, those became more possible to move in that direction. The other thing to really underline is this is really a huge revolution in terms of what's being offered on the menu, as well as the kinds of items that have been sourced for the school lunch menu, and the shift away from the commodity purchases. This is, in order for this to succeed, really needs kind of a systematic transformation of how kids and their families approach what's on the menu. That it's not what is traditionally assumed will be available at school lunch, that requires, that's kind of the challenge that the food movement as a whole really needs to address. The change in taste, the recognition of different kinds of foods that are more in keeping both with the healthier menu and one that's appropriate for the community and the cultural differences within a huge school district like Los Angeles. So it's going to be a process, but the transformation itself has been enormous. So why don't we leave it at that and open it up for questions.
Well, thanks so much, Bob and David, for that great presentation. I know we do have some questions. And just to remind everyone, if you have a question for our panelists, you can type it into your question tab on your webinar control panel, or you can send a question to me. My email is there on the screen, especially if you have a question that doesn't directly relate to this presentation. But we do have some questions here, so I'll just get started. The first one is, are the participation numbers that you cited earlier in the webinar for the whole program or for the second chance breakfast?
Actually, the participation numbers are for the whole program. What we saw originally going out a year ago, working through with our vendors, we anticipated about a 20% dip in the participation, simply because the children were not familiar with a lot of the foods. So what we ended up doing was to really work through, an educational communication with the County of Los Angeles as well as the City of Los Angeles through the County Renew LA grant to really help us to get the message out to our students. And what we're seeing is, now that they're familiar and have seen the food items 3 or 4 times, that they're actually taking the food. What we keep saying is, if you just try the food, you'll like it. And what we've really found is that participation is coming back now. We're looking at right now at about a 7% dip in terms of the participation. But when you look at our enrollment numbers are down, we also moved a number of schools back from Provision 2. What is also important to note is that the vendors that we're working with, all of our categorical partners, we meet on a quarterly basis and talk about, how do we drive participation? How do we, importantly, educate our students about nutrition? So what we did this last month or so is we actually have the cafeteria managers have the option, if they want to add a turkey sandwich or a 100% ground beef hamburger patty, that the manager has that option to do that if they feel like that they want to add to the participation to the things that are on the menu currently. So we've seen that participation overall, but we're seeing it coming back.
While we're waiting for a question, let me just add one other thing, that the cafeteria managers, the cafeteria workers themselves are a really important part of this story. And one of the next steps that's going to be really important is an active training and engagement with those folks in terms of the importance of the change and their participation in making that happen. And we're encouraged in the outreach that has occurred so far and the feedback that's going to also help in terms of increasing not only the participation, but changing how kids view food more broadly, and that becomes a kind of a community impact as well.
Thanks, Bob and David. Our next question is, if you can briefly explain the net off invoicing process.
Well, I'm happy to explain it in depth if anybody wants to connect directly with me. But essentially what happens is we have a commercial price that's agreed upon between the district and the supplier, and then the product that would have been received in terms of USDA commodities, would the value of that is then shown as a net discount off of the product itself. We've had some, challenges of working through some of that at this point. We've been doing it for about a year now. There's still some tweaks to go through on that, but essentially what it is, it shows a commercial price and then the value of those donated foods as a net off discount, and then we receive the net actual price of the invoice that we're paying.
I apologize. I was accidentally on mute. David, to follow up that question in mentioning about commodity purchasing, one of our other attendees would like to know if you could speak a little bit more about how you moved away from the commodity purchases and if any other districts have followed your lead.
Yeah, well, certainly that was one of our major challenges when Dennis came to the district. Was we had a $20 million inventory in our warehouse. We actually had a third-party commercial distributor distributing 58 of the same commodity food items as an independent contractor on a fee-for-service basis. We also had suppliers had up to 3 and 4 years worth of contracts that the district had signed for commodity food over the past, 5-6 years prior to 2007. And in 2004, the district went through our coordinated review effort, actually had 77 pages of violations. And so it wasn't a good time with the program. We were struggling with participation. We were struggling with the procurement. A lot of it was due to the fact that we accepted a lot of commodity truckloads as well as bonus truckloads. And so what we immediately started to do was to honor the contracts that were in place. We started to write the menus based upon what we had in terms of inventory. We stopped purchasing those commodity foods as well as in terms of turning in our commodity entitlements in terms of the products. We essentially went a whole year without ordering anything. And then what we did was, instead of ordering specific items, we actually just eliminated the whole process. So we don't accept bonus truckloads. We don't accept bonus foods. We don't accept any of those items in terms of direct deliveries, brown boxes to the district. And what's happened there is we actually have reduced our inventory. Because of that, we ended up, without having to have a third-party commercial distributor, without having to have contracts, over the several-year period with suppliers that may or may not have been honored by USDA for various different reasons, as well as when you start to get into the details about how accounting actually booked our commodity value, was that we were actually being charged twice for expenditures in the district on commodities, and we were receiving a credit of one time for the revenue. So what was happening was, as soon as we got our PAL entitlement dollars, we had the revenue, and immediately it was offset with the expenditure column of the same value, and then we started to receive the invoices for the commodities, as well as to pay the state for whatever processing and handling fees. So we've eliminated all that. The district now books the actual value as revenue, and we pay the expenditures as we come in. It shows the net off discount on the invoice. Having worked in many school districts, when you start looking at the way the accounting really works with commodity foods, it actually costs the district here about $12 million a year to take commodity foods. So there's a lot of value in terms of receiving donated foods in specific districts, but here in Los Angeles it just didn't make sense. It got us upside down in the first place, and so we ended up having to correct that, write the menus from that, and then in 2009 we had our last CRE, which we had 41 auditors here for almost 7 weeks at 47 schools, and they came out just really blown away in our report. We had no findings on major findings and no follow-up, and were very complimentary, and they attributed it to a number of things. One was to streamline the menu, to provide the same menu district-wide. In fact, in our district now, we only have one breakfast menu, whether it's elementary or secondary, and we're moving to one lunch menu that will be elementary and secondary. So we only offer 2 choices in the elementary schools. You can have this or that. One of them is a vegetarian option. We're down to 4 items for breakfast to meet the compliance regulations. And what we're finding is that the breakfast has really taken off and done very well for us this year. We've had a large increase in terms of breakfast participation, even though we've cut a number of second chance breakfasts out of the program. So what we're hearing is the breakfast is very much a hit. The lunch, the kids are still working through it, but what we've tried to do is to really work with our partners on the commodity portion and really eliminate that and purchase, what we really refer to with our vendors as restaurant quality. That to be proud of whatever it is that we're going to put on the plate we should be able to put that anywhere on any restaurant in Los Angeles. We also, in terms of working with the farm to school, have really connected with our local farmers, all the way from the Los Angeles County, San Bernardino, Kern County. We really have connected with a lot of our farmers through the Santa Monica Farmers Market to really try to promote our farmers, as well as to start working on planting crops for us for next year, which is obviously difficult, for a small school district, but it still was a decision that we wanted to make a change. Two things that my boss really has promoted is to change the school image of food in our county, as well as to remove all the non-value added costs. And so that's what we've tried to do, is attack all those non-value added costs.
And speaking of costs, I have two quick questions for you, and we have a good number of questions here to get through. So these are sort of quick ones. What's the range, hourly rate range that your workers are paid?
The range is that our employees start at $13.56 an hour. For a part-time worker is about $9,500 a year in actual salary, but those same workers receive about $17,000 in benefits. Those ranges go all the way up to our highest level cafeteria manager is around $35 an hour, and then you add the additional benefits onto that. They're certainly making a good living for what they're doing. What we have had is a reduction in terms of force across the district, as I mentioned earlier, plus also that we've had a number of collective bargaining agreements with our unions to reduce some of the days worked, so in terms of furlough days. We also had 5 canceled school days last year as well.
And are you, with all of these changes, are you operating at a profit or a loss right now?
Well, we're actually operating at a loss right now, but the benefit structure in terms of the board directive was for the district to help to subsidize that. Back to the original board meeting that it was approved at the board. My boss, mentioned to the board that it would take us into a deficit position, and the board had directed the superintendent at that time to help to subsidize the program. As we continue through some of the financial problems with the state and through the less money to the districts, it's constantly being reevaluated as to which parts of the programs that they are subsidizing and such. But it was a decision that the board made. It was a $42 million decision, but albeit we want to take care of our employees, we actually have no vacancy. I mean, we have less than a 1% vacancy rate. So the employees are making good money, plus also the ability to have benefits is huge for their families.
And there continues to be support. The superintendent just was on NPR talking about how valuable this change has been. At the same time, there's a huge crisis in California and for LAUSD in terms of overall funding levels, as there are, I'm sure, it's districts around the country.
And related, jumping from that question, you mentioned a lot of media, positive media that LAUSD has gotten from some of these changes. Is there anyone within your department or the district that's dedicated to pursuing that media?
There actually is not. We wrote a grant through the Communities Putting Prevention to Work. The County of Los Angeles connected with The City of Los Angeles, through our mayor, who is actually the president of the conference, U.S. Conference of Mayors this year, one of his initiatives is about childhood obesity. And then the LAUSD was connected through the triangular partnership, and Food Services was actually awarded over $1 million in terms of our grant to be able to promote these changes. It was reduced down to about $560,000, but as part of that, we actually were able to hire a professional public relations and marketing firm called RLPR here in Los Angeles, a New York and Los Angeles firm, to do the promotion for us. So we've been on every major television station, from CNN headline news to the ABC affiliates, all the way through to the print media as well as the web. And they've really helped us to promote this change as well as to educate the community. And this is not necessarily just in Los Angeles, but worldwide about what we're doing. So the district actually has nobody committed to it and has not paid anybody. And so those are the types of things that we really tried to reach out and connect with groups to be able to help, just like with the Farm to School as well as through Occidental College and various different groups, whether it's Loyola Marymount or USC, to really help us to educate the community about nutrition. Let's face it, it's all about trying to reduce this childhood epidemic of obesity as well as to provide healthy, nutritious foods for our kids.
David's also a member of the LA Food Policy Council, and the Food Policy Council has made it a major goal to do that kind of outreach and organizing around the change.
And David, we're running a little over time here since we had some technical problems at the beginning. So I think we'll just take one more question, and I should say all the questions. We have quite a few questions here that have already been entered that we're not going to be able to answer. So I would just encourage any of the attendees, if we haven't gotten to your question, or if you don't feel like it's been answered by some of the other conversations that we've had here, please email me at chelsea@farmtoschool.org there on your screen, and I can forward any other questions that you have to Bob and David afterwards. But the last question here has to do with preparation. Someone wondered, since you're bringing in more fruits and vegetables and sourcing more locally, are your staff doing more scratch cooking, or are these items being brought in processed by outside vendors?
Well, that's a good question. We really have looked at, the definition of what scratch cooking is. In fact, Alice Waters from Chez Panisse in Berkeley has come down. We've worked with her as well as Jamie Oliver and others, in terms of getting us back to that scratch cooking mentality about what does it really mean when we're scratch preparing or scratch producing food. Is it really an assembly? Is it really, a fresh prepared type of process? Actually, what's happened is we've really tried to work through items that are really minimally processed through our vendor relationships. And so, for an example, we're purchasing oranges that are locally sourced here off of Bob Knight's farm, and they're coming off 100-year-old trees. And so, what we've really tried to do is to work with the community, but from there, do we need to take and make it into something that is, child-friendly for them to consume? Some things we have, some things we haven't yet, but we've really made a strong push with our vegetarian supplier in terms of things like our salads. Our salads I would stack up against, any commercial entity such as Whole Foods or Trader Joe's or anything like that. That was kind of really our standard that we looked at. So in terms of production and preparation, we keep looking at that because that is one of the things in Los Angeles that is a bit unique, because many of the schools that are here in LA were built before 1940, and so we have 100-year-old schools that don't have any kitchens, no cafeterias, and so oftentimes the kids are eating outside, as well as it may be a satellite a warming kitchen that we have in terms of being able to prepare our food. So obviously there's no food preparation area. So we do have a central commissary that is really more of an assembly facility at this point that produces about 225,000 of our meals every day. And so all of those things are being looked at, consistently and continually about how do we continue to make progress, whether we're going to move to scratch philosophy or fresh prepared to.
Well, thanks, David and Bob, for the fantastic presentation. I know that there were a lot of questions we didn't get to. I think just because this is such an interesting topic for so many people, wanting to be able to replicate pieces of what you've done in such a big school system. So kudos and many thanks, and thank you to everyone attending. This will be the end of our webinar, but I hope everyone has a happy holiday this week.
If I could just interject to all those folks that are on the phone, we really, really, really appreciate what you do for our children across the nation. It's because of folks like you that are helping our communities, and just stay doing what you're doing because you're doing an awesome job out there. So hang in there.
Thanks, David.